Well, that was quite an episode. There was so much that just happened. I was not expecting some of these deep cuts. I am, like, constantly impressed with just how much this show really digs into so much of the X-Men and how it just takes on so many things. However, I will say I do have a little bit of a bone to pick. I feel like I'm being a bit nitpicky, but it is kind of an issue that I'm starting to notice from episode 3 into this one. And that is mainly that I feel like, once again, it feels like we're kind of speed running some stuff. This is an interesting episode. It's a split episode. So we're not just going to be talking about one story, we're going to be talking about 2 stories. But before I get into any of that, I just want to say, fair warning, spoiler warning, we are going to get into spoilers. I'm going to be talking about some of the good stuff in this episode, and boy oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about, because there's just so much happening. Okay, so it's a split episode that basically is dealing with 2 storylines. I'm going to refer to one as kind of a version of what I would say is like the Crunch Conundrum. The Crunch Conundrum is a weirdo 3-part Wolverine story, which honestly, I don't know if I should just do a video on this story, because when stuff came up from this, I was like, this is taking me to the Crunch Conundrum, and I feel like I need to talk about it. But it is a story that comes to us from Larry Hama. It is issue 51 through to 53 in Wolverine, the 1988 Wolverine series, the ongoing series from the 80s that Wolverine had. It has some amazing art in it, and it is so freaking weird. So it's kind of got some elements of that in it, but mostly it's also just like a fun story where Jubilee basically goes into an arcade game, goes into a video game, and plays it because she's trapped there by Mojo, which I also love that they brought Mojo back. I love Mojo. I love to see him here. It was really fun. There's also lots of like topical fun jokes. Just a lot of the writing here is really quippy. And before we even get into this part, we also get a really awesome breakfast scene before Jubilee is launched into this video game with Roberto with Sunspot. This really awesome breakfast scene where there's just so much sassiness happening with Gambit and Magneto. Oh, so much of this writing just brings me so much joy. I was smiling for so much of this episode. I'm so happy right now. With the Crunch Conundrum, what's happening in the comics is it's kind of like a Mojo story where we have to go to the end of time because Mojo's getting up to some shenanigans which could basically like crumble all of time. And Spiral randomly pulls Wolverine and Mystique into this adventure, and Jubilee is also at this motel to check on Wolverine because he's there with Mystique. It's a whole weird thing, and then Mystique made herself look like Jean Grey. Anyways, if you guys want me to get into this story, let me know because I can. But not to linger on it too much, Jubilee's also there. She gets pulled in, and when she is pulled in, there's this Plasma Wraith, I believe they're called. And the Plasma Wraith is later revealed to actually be a future version of Jubilee because we're with Mojo at this kind of like nexus of all time. And so there's this version of her where if she like basically gets stuck with Mojo, this is who she'll become, Abcissa. And Abcissa is in this, and apparently there were Funko leaks that I did not see. I was able to dodge a lot of spoilers for the show. I knew the Goblin Queen was coming. I knew Mr. Sinister, but I did not know about Abcissa. So I was like, I'm sorry, Abcissa? And I thought I was going to be so cool telling everyone about it because I thought, oh, that's such a deep cut. That's so cool. Turns out everyone already knows because of the toy leaks. But if you guys want me to go more into that story from Wolverine, I'd be happy to. It's very strange. Another deep cut that we also get comes from the second storyline, and that would be the Adversary. Initially, when I saw the owl, I don't know why, my mind went to like Shadow King zone. I think also because Storm is there, and Shadow King is like a big villain for Storm as well. But no, this is the Adversary, and the Adversary is actually a Forge villain. Also a deep cut, also connects back to Forge being Cheyenne and his sort of shaman background, because he's also a shaman, something we don't talk about a lot, I feel like, in the comics, but that is a crucial part, I would say, of his origin. So that is really cool to see the Adversary showing up. I think the Adversary's only been in like less than like 40 issues or something, so doesn't get used a lot either. Just these deep cuts were so good. I liked both of those things. I liked these characters that I don't get to see appearing. I will say that I just feel like in general we didn't get enough time with Jubilee's story, and I would have loved to see Abcissa flushed out a little bit more. That being said, most of this episode is that part of the story. Most of this episode, 18 minutes of it, is like Jubilee's wacky arcade adventure, and then the other 12 minutes of it, I believe, is Lifedeath Part 1. And I do like that they've cut up Lifedeath into, I believe it's going to be 2 parts. I think that's necessary, but I do wish we got a little bit more of it because it does feel like things move even really fast in the second part of this episode with Forge and Storm. So Forge and Storm obviously met at the end of episode 3. We saw that. And then Forge just basically reveals, you know, I'm a friend of Charles. And then Storm just goes off on an adventure with him. And in this episode, they're eating chili, they're riding horses, they're bonding. Forge is trying to help Storm get her powers back. And when she asks him, like, why are you so obsessed with this? Like, why are you so focused on fixing me? Like, why do you want to help me so much? Forge reveals to her that he was involved in the tech that was used to basically depower her. Because after the war, when he was injured, in order to make his cybernetics, his prosthetics, he needed some money. And so he went to the government, he worked with them, and he obviously feels guilty because he's kind of the reason that Storm lost her powers because he helped with that tech. He didn't fully make it, but he was just like, it's basically based off of my designs. I gotta be real with you. And he's also like, also, I'm in love with you. And I'm like, whoa, Forge. Like, I know this is where this goes in the comics, so I'm with you. But it felt a little bit fast just in terms of the show and where we were at in terms of the pacing. However, when we're also in Forge's place, I also love that we get this amazing just pan of his photos. There's just one shot, and we have, you know, a photo of him with X Factor. We have a photo of him when he's, like, his military days, and he's actually with the character that Mystique turns into in Come the Apocalypse in season 1 of the classic series, so that was a thing. And then Forge, there's also this picture of Forge just by himself standing on the beach looking out majestically, and I'm just like, who took this picture of Forge? Why is this picture so big on his board? I love it so much. It's so goofy. But also, you know what it reminded me of? Something that I love a lot in Marvel, guys. The Marvel swimsuit specials. And I went through to see if this was actually a picture of Forge specifically. I couldn't find that, but I did find a picture of Forge in the 1994, I believe, Marvel swimsuit special. And he's reflected in Storm's glasses. And it is... Guys, I love the Marvel swimsuit specials. I really want to do a ton of Marvel swimsuit special cosplays. No one will really get them because they're just bathing suits. But like if I did the Jean one with like the yellow bikini, and then I also had the X can that she has, I think that's from the 1995 one, with like the X-Men branded can of soda or whatever in the straw. Would people know who I am? Let me know if you're at a con if you would know who I am. I do have my Phoenix inspired swimsuit special cosplay that I do, but anyways, it just reminded me of the swimsuit specials, and I loved it. Overall, I gotta say, I pretty much love everything that we got in these episodes. I love that we're going back to the classic arcade game, and that there's all that inspiration from that. Basically, it is the side-scroller, I believe, the classic side-scroller that they took from. I also love that 8-bit theme. I need that as my ringtone. There's so many little details in here that are so well done, and the animation, even with Mojo and the whole arcade sequence, especially that final fight with Mojo, that animation is so freaking tight. It looks so good. Also, I'm sorry, I don't know if people say tight anymore, but I just said it, so hopefully that's fine. I'm so excited. I can't contain myself. I feel like a child. I feel so giddy. Just every element of this show is being done so well, from the writing to the characterization to the deep cuts from the comics to the storylines and the way things are being woven in. But although I love pretty much everything, I do still wish that we just got more of it. It feels like we are rushing a little bit still. I just want a little bit more breathing room. Like episode 1 and 2. So Sasha was talking about this in her review of episode 3. I think she was talking about this in her review of episode 3. Also, if you haven't checked out Casually Comics, What Are You Doing With Your Life? Make sure you go check out Casually Comics. Make sure you're subscribed, have those bell notifications on. She's been doing these amazing casual recaps and reviews of the episodes, as well as really amazing deep dives into them if you want all the nitty gritty and the Easter eggs and just all of the storylines and how they all play into it from the comics. It's really great. And she was talking about this idea as well that I've been talking about, of it feels like we're moving really fast, especially when we go back to episode 1 and 2. You know, episode 1 and 2 feels so slow in comparison to this, and I understand that episode 1 and 2 are kind of more laying the scene, but to me it also just feels like they're a little bit more focused. Like we're picking one thing and we're going with that, you know? Episode 2 is Trial of Magneto. Episode 1 is more of a focus on like Cyclops and just the team and introducing everybody. Episode 3 even is Inferno. It's sped run, it's speed running Inferno, but it's Inferno. Episode 4 is 2 storylines now. Jubilee and Storm we're focusing on. It's just a lot. And I think it might be a little bit too much, but I will say they are handling the task of trying to fit all this in there very well, and I am impressed with that. I just wish there was more episodes, because I wish we could have more breathing room and more time, so I didn't feel like we were kind of running through some of these stories. I would have loved a whole episode that was just Jubilee and her arcade adventure with Sunspot. I think that would have been really good. We could have built up Abcissa a little bit more. We could have built up a little bit more of the emotion of really what's going on with Jubilee and her fear of growing up. I loved the speech that we got from Abcissa, but it didn't feel 100% earned to me, and I just would have loved to see a little bit more of a build up to it. We also could have played with the mystery of who she is a little bit more, I think. And then I think, you know, you do Lifedeath part 1 and 2, each I think is their own full episodes. I think there's enough material. So that's really my only complaint so far. Also, what's happening with Genosha? Genosha joined the UN. It's alluded to again in this episode. What's going on with it? We haven't touched on it yet. I hope we touch on it. I hope Magneto's like, oh, by the way, I've also been doing all this stuff with Genosha, because Genosha is part of the UN. And yeah, I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it. I hope it's kind of Krakoa inspired, because I'd love that. Not a requirement, just still dreaming. Still dreaming about, will Krakoa be interwoven into this at all? I'm still holding on to that Hellfire Gala newspaper page, guys. I know no one else is here for this like I am, but I'm not going to give up on my dreams. Overall, I did really like this episode, though. I had a fun time. Like I said, I couldn't stop smiling through most of it, except for the parts where I felt emotional turmoil. Love Storm, by the way, just slapping Forge after he's like confessing that, yeah, he kind of made the thing that depowered her, but also he loves her. And also, like, it was really hard for him. And I get that. I'm not hating on Forge here, but I just love that Storm's like unacceptable either way. Like, you don't deserve me. I was like, yes, Storm, yes, love that energy. That is how it do be, though. I gotta say, overall, I think I gotta give this one, I might give it a 7. I think it's a 7 or an 8. It might be, let's go 7.5 for now. I'm on the fence about it. I'm gonna go 7. I don't feel great about it because there's so much that I still loved. But I just think compared to the other episodes especially, it's just the weakest one so far. But it was still really fun. It was still really good. And I can't wait to see where we go next, because I think we're really building to something big, which is why we have to run through all this stuff. And I can't wait when we get there, because I feel like it's going to be insane. That's pretty much it for this one, friends. I hope you enjoyed this review. Do all the YouTube things, but mostly just go read more X-Men comics, because X-Men's amazing, and I'm so excited. All right, I'll see you next time. Until then, stay nerdy.